Hi, everyone. I'm Bobby Allison with the Allison Synthesis. And starting this new week, I'm going to be discussing how you can manage emergencies. And these are just more about everyday emergencies that happens, like cuts and lacerations, this is called. Does it need stitches? Doesn't it? Broken versus sprained, severely sprained, which is mildly sprained. The day-to-day emergencies, especially that parents face with children, scrapes and cuts and falling down and hitting their heads and sometimes eating what they're not supposed to eat. So what I want to do, I'm a retired firefighter and a paramedic and a healthcare professional with more than 2 decades of experience. Grew up in a medical family. Father was a doctor. My mother was his nurse, as a matter of fact. They actually met when she was in nursing school, and he was the director of education of nursing at a hospital in outside of Washington, D.C., big hospital. And so with that said, I know a little bit about it. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how to handle emergencies. So that in the case it comes up, you're going to be prepared and ready to go. I'm going to talk about debunking things like when exactly we should use a tourniquet versus using compression when we have an arterial bleed, as it's called. Somebody's bleeding out very fast. It could be a venous bleed as well, something from the vein. But usually when it's a critical emergency, it's coming from the artery. And how are we going to deal with that? And actually can be dealt with. And what do we do for somebody who has dislocated a shoulder or has fallen and broken a wrist or twisted an ankle? You know how that can easily happen just stepping off the curb. So these are things that can easily be managed until you get to a healthcare professional who's going to take care of it. When to call an ambulance and when not to call an ambulance will be another aspect of what we'll be talking about this coming week. We don't always need to call an ambulance. I don't want to say that you shouldn't. If you feel like you should, call. But there's a few things we can talk about that maybe that you might actually not yourself drive, but a family member or someone with you who is capable of driving, who's sober and capable, can drive you to the hospital, and you don't need to call an ambulance. They do charge for the rescue services now. Back when I was working in the fire department many years ago, it was included in your taxes. I worked in a large fire department out in the suburbs of the Washington, D.C. area. And back then it was included. I don't know what it is anymore. But I know in the last place I lived in South Carolina, it was very expensive to call. But you should never hesitate in an emergency. And of course, they give you time to pay it back. And most of the time, insurance covers most of it. You usually only have to come out of a little bit out of your pocket. So don't, and in the case of an emergency, when somebody's having a heart attack or stroke or something like that, it's not the time to think about money. When you sprain an ankle, hurt your thumb, maybe have a cut, that looks like it might need a stitch or whatever, a couple of stitches maybe. It's not bleeding profusely. You're able to put compression on it and slow or stop the bleeding. Then that's, a ride to the airport. I mean, a ride to the not to the airport. A ride to the emergency room. There's a Freudian slip there somewhere. So. So we're gonna, make sure that we look out for everybody and let them know what they can do. I want to use my many years of experience from medicine and healthcare to help people if I can. And so tune into the channel, and the Lou dog will be with me. We're going to talk about that. We can even talk about first aid for doggies and animals as well. I consult with some of my veterinarian friends. But for right now, we're going to talk about how do we manage the emergencies at home and when we're out and about, where maybe we could help somebody, like with diabetes. How do you know if somebody is hypoglycemic or hyperglycemic? Whether their blood sugar is low, whether his blood sugar is high, and what you can do in order to help people. This is a common emergency that happens thousands and thousands of times a day in the United States. And one of the biggest emergency medical calls, or what we would just call medical calls, that we would go on. So stay tuned, and thank you for coming to the channel. This is Bobby Allison, and have a wonderful day. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.